when you finally decide to go no contact with a narcissist, one of the most powerful and unsettling things you will witness is their initial shock. Narcissists live in a world where they expect you to always be available, always answering their calls, always reacting to their behavior, whether in anger, fear, or even love. To them, your presence is not just about companionship. It is their lifeline, their constant source of validation. So when you step back and break that cycle, especially for a prolonged period, it feels like an earthquake shaking the very foundation of their carefully constructed illusion of control. They'd never imagined that their victim will one day have the strength to simply walk away and not look back. In their minds, they believe you are dependent on them, that you need their approval, their attention, and even their chaos to feel alive. So when the silence stretches and the phone doesn't ring, when their manipulative games are met with nothing but absence, it delivers a devastating blow to their ego. That silence becomes louder than any argument, louder than any emotional reaction you once gave them, because it tells them the truth. They no longer control you. This shock often leaves them scrambling, replaying scenarios in their head, trying to figure out how they lost their grip. They'll wonder if you've found someone else, if you've truly moved on, or if you're plotting a way to punish them. But what they can't accept is the simplest reality, that you've chosen peace over chaos. For someone who feeds on constant drama and emotional energy, your absence is not just confusing, it's terrifying. That's why the very first reaction is always disbelief. They may tell themselves it's temporary, that you'll eventually come crawling back, that you can't possibly resist the bond they think they've built with you. Yet as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the shock deepens, because what they thought was impossible is now undeniable. And this is where the true shift begins, because the moment a narcissist realizes they don't have the control they once had, it marks the beginning of their unraveling. Once the shock of no contact sets in, the next stage a narcissist often slips into is rage. To them, your silence is not simply distance, it is defiance. They see it as a personal attack, an insult to the power they believe they hold over you. Narcissists rely on emotional reactions to feed their sense of superiority. And when you cut that supply off, their ego feels starved. That's when anger bubbles to the surface, sometimes in subtle ways and sometimes in very obvious explosions. This rage can take many forms. Some narcissists lash out directly, sending furious messages, leaving angry voicemails, or confronting you in ways meant to intimidate you back into compliance. Others may choose more indirect attacks, spreading rumors, turning mutual friends against you, or trying to damage your reputation to reclaim a sense of control. What drives this behavior is not genuine hurt. It's the terror of losing dominance. They equate silence with rejection. And rejection is something their fragile ego cannot tolerate. When their anger takes hold, it often disguises itself as justification. They might convince themselves that you're the one at fault, that you've betrayed them, or that you owe them attention. This is where you may see them exaggerating stories, twisting facts, or painting you as cruel or ungrateful. Rage for them becomes a shield against the truth that they no longer have power over you. It's easier for them to direct blame outward than to face their own emptiness. In this phase, their aggressive behavior isn't about love, and it isn't about wanting to repair the relationship. It's about punishing you for daring to walk away, for daring to take your energy back. This is why staying strong during this stage is so important, because their rage is designed to pull you back into their cycle of conflict, the very cycle you escaped by going no contact. And the longer you resist responding, the more their fury burns, revealing just how dependent they always were on your reactions. After their anger fails to bring you back, many narcissists shift into what is often called the hoovering stage. Just like a vacuum, they try to suck you back into their world by any means necessary. This is where their manipulation takes on a softer, more deceptive form. Instead of rage, they suddenly show vulnerability, affection, or regret, hoping it will lure you into reopening the door you worked so hard to close. They might reach out with messages that sound apologetic. I've been thinking about everything and I realize I was wrong. Or they may remind you of the good times, sending old photos or memories designed to pull at your heart. Some will even make promises of dramatic change, insisting that they've reflected and they're finally ready to give you the love you always wanted. But what makes this stage so dangerous is that for a moment they can seem convincing, they can appear charming, tender, even sincere, because they know exactly what strings to pull. The truth to horror is that these attempts are rarely genuine. The narcissist is not interested in true growth or accountability. They're interested in regaining supply. They miss the control, the validation, the constant attention you used to give them. Their sudden sweetness is not about your healing or your happiness. It's about restoring their own sense of importance. This is why so many victims of narcissistic abuse get caught in cycles. Just when they've built enough distance to feel free, the narcissist swoops in with words that awaken old hopes, making them second guess their decision. But if you look closer, the pattern is always the same. Once they feel secure that you've returned, the mask slips and the old behavior resurfaces. Understanding the hooving tactic is essential because it helps you see through the illusion. No matter how kind or loving they suddenly seem, it's not real transformation. It's a performance meant to keep you hooked. The most powerful response is to continue the silence, because every time you resist the bait, you prove that their control over you is truly broken. And that, more than anything, is what terrifies them the most. When the softer manipulation of hoovering doesn't work, the narcissist often shifts into another survival tactic, playing the victim. This is one of their most effective masks because it allows them to rewrite the story, placing themselves at the center of sympathy and portraying you as the cruel, heartless one. To people who don't know the truth, this act can seem believable because narcissists are skilled at twisting reality in a way that makes them appear wounded and abandoned. They may tell mutual friends that you suddenly cut them off without reason, painting you as cold and ungrateful after all they did for you. They might share exaggerated stories of their suffering, claiming that you've destroyed them emotionally. Or they may even play on your own empathy by sending messages about how lost and broken they are without you. The goal of this performance is not healing. It is manipulation. By portraying themselves as the victim, they aim to guilt you into returning, or at the very least to gain validation from others who will rush to comfort and defend them. Now, defensiveness is this form of defense. This tactic also helps them maintain their fragile ego. Narcissists cannot tolerate the idea that you left because of their own behavior, so instead they shift the blame. In their rewritten version of events, you are the one who inflicted pain, while they are the misunderstood soul who gave everything and got nothing in return. This narrative not only shields them from accountability, but also provides them with a fresh source of supply, sympathy and attention from new listeners who buy into their story. For the victim, this can be one of the most challenging stages to witness, especially when people you both know begin to believe the narcissist's version of events. It can feel unfair, even infuriating, to see them cast as the injured party while you remain silent. But remember, their performance is not about truth. It is about regaining power. And the greatest act of strength is refusing to step back into the role they want you to play, because every time you stay firm in your silence, their victim mask loses its hold. When prolonged no contact continues and the narcissist realizes their attempts at rage, hoovering, and victim playing are failing, they almost always turn to what they know best: finding new supply. A narcissist cannot sit in the emptiness of their own company for long. They need constant validation, attention, and admiration to fill the void inside them, and when you're no longer giving it, they will quickly search for someone else who will. This doesn't mean they've forgotten you or moved on in a healthy way. It means they're desperate to replace the fuel you once provided. They may suddenly appear in a new relationship, flaunting it publicly, as if to prove how easily replaceable you were. They might post exaggerated displays of happiness, romance, or success, not because they're truly content, but because they want you to see it and feel regret. Their new supply becomes a stage prop, a way to prove to themselves and to you that they still have worth and control. But underneath the surface, it's rarely what it seems. These new connections often follow the same toxic patterns: an intense beginning, a flood of attention and charm, followed by the same cycles of control and manipulation. The narcissist isn't looking for real love or intimacy. They're looking for someone else to play the role you refuse to continue. And while they may appear glowing in the early stages of their new attachment, the truth is that it's a temporary fix, not true healing. For you, witnessing this can be painful. It may stir doubt, making you question if you were the problem or if they've suddenly transformed with someone else. But it's important to remember, what they show the world is an illusion. They are not suddenly healed because you left. They are simply feeding on another source to avoid facing their own emptiness. In reality, the very fact that they rushed to find someone new is proof of their inability to sit with themselves. It shows that your silence forced them to confront a void they can't fill on their own, and instead of growing, they're running from it once again. He has this exquisite bitterness, that he has this extreme pressure on you. Over time, when every tactic has failed and your no contact remains unbroken, the narcissist eventually moves into a state of quiet resentment and reluctant resignation. At this stage, they've already tried rage, guilt, manipulation, and replacement, but none of it has brought you back under their control. What settles in now is a bitter acceptance, not because they found peace, but because they finally understand that you're no longer accessible to them in the way you once were. This resentment can linger beneath the surface for years. A narcissist never truly lets go of the people who once supplied them. They may still talk about you to others, painting you in a negative light, or keep subtle tabs on you from a distance, waiting for an opportunity to re-enter your life. They might even hold on to anger quietly, replaying the story in their mind of how you wronged them by cutting them off, using that bitterness as fuel to protect their fragile ego. To them, the wound of losing control never fully closes. But alongside that bitterness comes resignation. When enough time passes without you breaking the silence, they start to realize that you're not coming back. That realization is crushing to their sense of superiority because it proves that their power over you was not permanent. For someone who thrives on control, this becomes a lasting reminder that they can be abandoned, that their grip is not as strong as they once believed. The irony is, while they stew in resentment, you grow lighter and freer. Their resignation is not your burden. It's the evidence of your strength. The fact that you withstood their games, their manipulation, and their tactics means you stepped out of their cycle and reclaimed your power. That's something a narcissist may never fully accept, but it doesn't need their acceptance to be true. Because in the end, the silence they hate so much is the very thing that sets you free.